What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of someone being homeless?
Well, before I was homeless, I thought that being homeless meant that you were some kind of bum in a funny old worn-out coat that jumped off of a train and slept on a park bench and begged for money and got drunk. And I didn't realize that being homeless just meant you didn't have an address. You couldn't afford rent, that's all.
This is the story of a family and the choice they made to become homeless.
I was married to a man who wanted to be a teacher, and I thought there could be nothing better than to help children. I went to it with innocent hope that things were going to be fantastic.
With time, Barbara's family grew. She had 2 sons, Jason and David, and a beautiful daughter, Amy. As the years went by, so did Barbara's dreams and hopes.
My husband was very controlling. The last half of my marriage, I didn't matter. And then I started not to matter to myself. But I kept hanging on for my children. And I started to accept that life was sad. Sad became normal. And I don't know how it slowly turned into okay for me not to be alive anymore. But I thought I could always intervene, and I could take the brunt of my husband's anger, and my children would still be protected and safe. And then I started to feel like a hero, which is sick and wrong.
Barbara's family faced many challenges on a daily basis. Jason struggled with juvenile diabetes, Barbara's failing health, and a husband that was definitely not the man she had married.
There was a day when Jason was playing in the yard, and he was on his little scooter and a little girl was on a bike, and they crashed into each other and tumbled onto the grass. And the mother of the little girl came running over saying, "I'm gonna sue you because my daughter's injured." So he grabbed Jason and threw him into a wall.
Barbara discovers it takes just one event to change lives.
He was not going to hurt the children like he did me. And I decided he had to leave. I hadn't been a shield. I hadn't protected them. I was living a lie because I was more afraid of the unknown of this big, scary world than afraid of the truth of turning around and looking in a mirror and seeing how I was really living. Because although you tell yourself, he'll never hurt the kids. He loves the kids. He's their father. It's inevitable. If someone doesn't have limits with a wife, he's not going to have limits anywhere else. Within a month, I realized I was going to lose my home. I realized we were going to live in poverty. He wasn't going to help us. And I had to somehow get my children ready for the fact that in a short period of time, they were going from living in a house with a backyard, with a swing set, with a tree they climbed on, to who knows where.
We kind of chose to be homeless at first, which was a tough decision because who would choose to be homeless? Who would choose to leave everything behind? But we decided to take the road of homelessness because we would rather, decide for ourselves and, live our lives than be in the life of violence. When we became homeless, I was 13 turning 14. So it was hard for me to accept the fact that we had gone to zero.
What can be harder than leaving your home, going to zero, and know there is no turning back?
For me, it was how people treated us when they learned we were quote-unquote homeless, or later on when we were quote-unquote in poverty. For some reason, people treat that like a disease, like something's wrong with you, that something should be done. That you're not a normal person, that you need to be fixed somehow. And that was very hard for me to cope with. I never really felt like I fit in with people my age. For some reason, people just didn't ever want to be around me. The neighborhood I was in was kind of a more upscale neighborhood, and people will look for small reasons not to like you and not to hang out with you. And some kids are even emotionally rewarded for finding somebody to be better than. And I was a very easy target for somebody to be better than in that regards.
As I moved on to high school and whatnot, I had an awful teacher that judged us because I was in poverty. And she didn't want me to participate because to her poverty meant being dirty, being lice-filled, or just not being smart. It made me feel angry to think that she thought I was dirty and that I wasn't good enough. I mean, the people in her class, were kind of the opposite. They went to skiing trips and they missed school a lot of the time. And when I missed school, because I had to have my tonsils out, she was very ununderstanding. And she said, "You missed school. That is why I can't put you in my play." But I knew the reason. She kept looking at me like I was nothing. And these people who were preppy and they had the right clothes and they had the right personality and they had the right, I don't want to say wallet, she loved them and she just put the spotlight on them all the time.
Most shelters, they do not want teenagers in the shelter. A mom can stay with young children. Adults can stay there, but not teenagers, because teenagers can instantly be angry or full of hormones or vandalistic or belong to gangs, and teenagers have caused a lot of damage to different kinds of shelter programs. And one night when we went to the shelter downtown, I was told that I could stay with my youngest child, David, because he was young enough to still be counted as a child. But my other two children, I would have to leave them on the street that night. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't sleep one night warm with a blanket, knowing that two of my children were just in danger.
While I was homeless, I had to worry about my insulin. Apparently being homeless and being a diabetic don't mix very well. It wasn't easy for me during that time. Having to worry about how much insulin I should or should not take, what I could or could not eat. It was a consistent worry. We either had to buy groceries so we could eat food, or buy insulin, and at the time both were very expensive. And it wasn't easy making those life or death decisions. There were times I would sometimes stay awake at night wondering what I should do. And I had a lot of questions. I was starting to doubt if we were going to make it through being homeless.
There were days where I thought I should give my children to foster care because they deserve a warm meal every day. And they deserve clothes that are warm in winter, and they deserve more than one pair of shoes. And it was strange because right about then Katrina hit. And I remember being so jealous of Katrina victims because FEMA came in and got them trailers to live in and gave them money to get their lives started over and moved people to different cities. And I thought, I wasn't hit by a hurricane from nature. My hurricane came one-on-one between me and my husband, between me and health, between me and poverty. Mine was a tiny hurricane. And why wasn't there help for me?
There was this one time when we were all going to bed, we'd all laid down, and I'd asked my mom, "Mom, do you hear that?" And she said, "What?" And I said, "No one is yelling at us."
One day, my Davy just said, "Oh, Mom, I'm so glad you love me." And I realized that if I wasn't with them, no one would love them. I started realizing that life was choice. You weren't a helpless victim. I had choice. My children were free to have choice. And I started to become addicted to choice. And I realized that the whole world wasn't mean, and it wasn't terrible, and there were good people out there. All I had to do was find them.
Throughout the years when we were homeless, we met so many people that were really willing to help us out, and now they're some very good friends of ours, and we do appreciate of how they helped us out. And
I had gained courage by being afraid first. And I'm starting to realize I can do things more than just help my children survive. One day, a good friend of mine, Margaret, said to me, "How do you know tomorrow will be bad?" You don't know. But what you do know is that if you do nothing, you're letting yourself stay in pain. When life changes, it's ugly and hard and sweaty and tiring. You have to fight for it. My purpose isn't just to get them forward, it's to get all of us forward.
Well, now I'm at Salt Lake Community College and I'm studying, well, pretty much just generals, but I'm planning to transfer to Utah Valley University at the end of this year to study digital media. Hopefully I'll graduate in the next 2 semesters from there and be able to transfer.
I'm studying to be an accountant at Salt Lake Community College, and it is fun. I'm not just a bean counter. There's more to it than just the numbers, and I think I will enjoy it.
so I'm very proud of my mom for being able to pull myself and my siblings through that, and herself. Very grateful for her, and she was very brave. I don't know if I would have that kind of courage like my mom did to actually do that. Because at the time I was scared, frightened, and in a way we're all fearing for our lives of what might happen next.
No one is stuck. Everyone has a tomorrow that isn't written yet. What happened yesterday does not write tomorrow. Tomorrow can be different.
There is something to strive for. You aren't nothing. You are intelligent. There is something that makes you unique. You are always struggling, but don't lose hope. Try to strive for a better tomorrow.
I believe that people have more control of their lives than they give themselves credit for. That if there's something you truly want and you're truly willing to work for it, then there's really nothing that can stop you.
Sometimes the path to happiness and freedom will have twists and turns and parts where you question if you made the right decision or if you really will be happy. But I think it helps to often check where you're coming from and ask yourself if that type of life is the life you want. Do you really want to live in violence or in scrutiny or in constant, condemnation? Do you really want that? And I think when you bring that question back to the table, then the choice is obvious.
I never would have believed 10 years ago that I would be happy like this, ever. I wouldn't have thought I deserved it. I wouldn't have thought it was possible. I wouldn't have thought I could have joy in poverty, eating way too much mac and cheese and ramen noodles. But I love my children, and I love peace. I love choices. I love that I'm in college. I'm meeting smart people. Life today is different from yesterday, and you just don't know what tomorrow brings. So don't sell it halfway short and say it has to be bad. No matter how scary the world is, if you are somewhere where love is, then you're going to be okay.